what to do with my hands. No, all right. Hey, everybody's tuning in. I'm sure you're expecting to see Mohawk Matt here. Apparently, it's me on first here because I'm gonna run it, kind of flip the script on him a little bit today on his Activate podcast. We can kind of hash out what we talked about, hashing out like a problem, and he has no idea what I'm about to do, and that's super fun because I'm on his account. and I told him like, hey, let's just get on like online and just like see if we can just solve a problem in 30 minutes or so, or talk about something. Okay, let's do it. And so I left it at that, and I immediately went to the internet and I was like, man, what companies do I really want to work with? And I kind of found a list of companies. And so we're here now. We have two other people that joined us, right, Matt? We got Matt, Mohawk, and Chloe, and this was Graham's idea. Wherever they went.
I'm here, man. I've never gone live before, so I don't know what to do. You're in charge.
Well, it's going to run just like an episode of Care Bears. No, man. So earlier today, like, just you initially you asked a question, and it made me like spring to superheroes. And from superheroes, I'm like running you through my mind map right now. From superheroes, I went to like, not everybody's a superhero. Sometimes you're just an enabler, right? Like Alfred. What other ones did I say? April O'Neil.
April O'Neil from Ninja Turtles.
Right, Ninja Turtles. And that kind of led me to this, like, superheroes have a problem to solve. How do you enable people to actually solve problems in that? And that kind of led me down to the road of like, what problems do I want to solve? What companies would I want to work with? And so how I did that was I figured like, I'll do it how I always do it. I scour the internet, I scour LinkedIn, I check out companies that I want to work with, and I try to find problems or interesting opportunities that they have. For example, like I was looking at Temper Sealy, they're a mattress company, and I found that they're releasing an environmentally friendly, I said economically, environmentally friendly mattress this year, which I thought was super interesting because it's the first one ever that they're doing. And for me, I was like, that's an opportunity, right? Like when you see something like that.
Yeah. Was that a question or was that a comment? You just stopped talking.
That was both.
Sort of. I think it's interesting to understand why. Like what is the purpose of them going after that? Is it because they have leadership or employees that want to go green? Or is it because it saves them money? Or is it just because it's the fad to do now? Like, I'm not saying they're doing it for that reason, but some companies do. Some companies just do it because that's the trend. And it's trendy to go green now. You're going to get a whole new market that wants things to go green and composting toilets and all that stuff. So I'm curious why they're doing that.
Well, they're going green because I have a green screen.
Makes sense.
Yeah, no, so that's where I wound up at. I wound up with this list of companies today, and I went like, what do all these companies probably have in common? And I don't remember what list I had. It was like Crocs and Temper Sealy and TJI, and there was a list of like, I think 20 others. It was like top 25 medium-sized companies in the U.S. or whatever.
They're still here.
Yeah. And so I thought, like, what do all of them probably have in common? What are all of them probably trying to solve? And really, like, sustainability is something that everybody's on. And so I started looking at that, right? And that's where I stumbled across, environmentally friendly mattress.
All I'm going to add, Graham, right now is that I think you spoke too long because we went from 14 watchers to 2. You're on mute, but
that was on purpose. My bad.
Or he said the word green too many times.
Somebody says shareholders. That's why they're going green.
Some of it might be because like federal law entices people to go to be economically friendly as well, though, right? So like there's some extent that does play a margin into it, in my opinion. It's like, okay, no one can convince me using paper straws is the same as using a plastic straw. The experience is vastly different. However, I understand the importance behind paper straws. Just don't give me any straw. So like I think there's still some value from like a federal tax or benefit aspect that people go green for.
My biggest problem with paper straws is that I can't pick my teeth with it after, like a toothpick.
I don't like that they're like an ice cream cone where they start melting.
They definitely do that.
Yeah, and I
guess how do you guys go about finding problems, or Matt? Like, how do you working from outside of an organization, how do you look inside of an organization and say, hey, like find your own problems? Like, you guys live here, it's your house. But a lot of times companies are going like, we know we need to improve this, but we just don't know where to start. So I started on the internet. Where do you start?
Yeah, I start by watching them. I want to understand why. So I'm a grasshopper of the UX world for many years now, learning that stuff. And I am always curious to see what the user of the product or of the company says, both from an employee standpoint and a consumer standpoint. I want to know how they're using something, because I think we're going to find a problem. The problems mostly come from assumptions. Most companies or organizations' problems come from assuming something, or they assume they know how to solve something, and they assume it's going well. Like, let's talk about branding. A lot of companies and organizations think their branding is going well because they have a pretty logo, or they have nice colors, or they have a good website. But when in reality, their branding could be bad, and they could be losing customers and not even realize it. And so I like to watch before I talk to anyone. And then I like to talk to the lowest people on the totem pole. Like, I don't ever want to, like, sometimes I'll get brought into organizations by the higher person, but I'll say, okay, cool. Don't tell me anything. Tell me what your problems you want to fix, and then stop. And then I want to go just talk. I want to find out. I want to hang out. I've done this before a few years ago where it's kind of like that undercover boss. I was a pretend new guy for a team and for a couple of weeks. And I learned so much about what the real problems were versus what the problems the leadership brought me in to fix. And I think so that's what I do, is I learn from the people doing the work, not the people that usually hire me.
Yeah.
My take.
That's really interesting. Go ahead, Mike.
So I've been trying to find problems in my organization, and I actually had a conversation that I finally got to the right person who was able to explain to me how they actually manage all their problems. So, and during that conversation, I realized it wasn't the fact that they didn't know how to manage their problems. It was that they didn't have the resources. And so they have a really good site that's built on a very old server, but it does the job that they needed to do, and they can rack and stack and prioritize and show what's funded and what's not. But it comes down to resources for them. So I think I guess what I was getting at with that, like based on Matt's comment, your comment, and mine, it depends. And I hate saying that, but it does.
It depends.
It's not an adult diaper store.
Did you guys know I wanted to rape when I was a little kid?
You wanted to what?
I won a crawling race and I won a year's worth of diapers.
Oh,
I'm proud of you.
Right on. I'm
Fun.
I'm almost 37 and I want a crawling race. So, here we are.
I don't know. I feel like I'm going to jack up my knees more crawling than I would running.
Fair enough. Yeah, probably. Well, hey, like we plan on getting on here for about 30 minutes. We're about 11 minutes in. So I want to Matt, I'm going to throw you a complete curveball. I pulled up that list of companies and this one is not on it, but it just hit me. It was like, because I was trying to think like what could what could we actually get after today and look at as far as it doesn't even have to be problem to solve. It just be opportunity or challenge or messaging or communication. So I thought about this is probably the first part we're going to hit. Umpqua Oats. Have you guys heard of this? Okay, there's a company called UMPQUA Oats. And I'm like 99% sure I'm saying it wrong. Umpqua Oats. But like if you had a problem to solve with a company, where would you start here?
Well, so first I pull up their website and it looks like ice cream to me. So you've got a couple things that you're already anchoring for me. I'm going to be super disappointed when I eat this oatmeal and it doesn't taste like ice cream, because every bone in my body is telling me this is like Ben and Jerry's, some other brand, whatever. This is an ice cream tub, and maybe that's what they're going for. Maybe they're trying to lie and deceive their customer, because I am annoyed already that it's not ice cream. I'm like, why are we? That's going to be such a sad taste. Oh, here's some ice cream because it looks like ice cream. Oh, it's oatmeal. Like, and don't get me wrong, I love oatmeal. I had oatmeal this morning for breakfast. It was delicious. But this to me is false advertising, and it doesn't. It's product based. The first page I hit for Umpqua Oats is all about the product, not about what the experience is, and that's where the customer and consumer is now. That's why influencers are a thing. Like them or hate them, people like things because of who likes it, because of what it does for them. It doesn't matter about being the best anymore. It has to have a story, it has to have a reason. And I don't get any of that from here other than they're lying to me about ice cream.
That's super interesting. Also, so like, oh, go ahead, Chloe.
It's also a double branding problem, right? So it looks like they did a brand redevelopment or like a branding reimaging on their packaging. So the first site that pulls up when you drop it in the Google bot, which, hashtag throwback to Netscape didn't have this problem, but the old image of their terrible looking yogurt carton shows up first, and then their very sleek one. The problem is it doesn't emphasize the big parts of the company, which is someone in the, I always go to the people ask also about a company or anything I'm Googling, because they're very intuitive as to what people are thinking about the product. And one of the first ones is like, is this vegan? And where it hits on it in there is it has actually several different health or niche markets it could apply to, but that's not evident from their branding. So like Red Vines does a really good job of telling you they're gluten-free. I also don't think licorice ever had gluten in it, but it's like right on the front of their like branding, right? Like you understand when you eat a Red Vine, this is gluten-free, and that's not evident from their packaging. And there's also the potential that it's they have the same problem that beer has. So the reason why beer companies sell in specific intervals from 6 cans, 10 cans, 12 cans, 18, 24, and 36 is to take up shelf space. But the problem when it comes to this company is that for a vendor to accept bringing them on, like Walmart, Trader Joe's, any of that, they have a ton of product, and which product of that sells the most value? That's where it gets a little tricky. So it's almost as if like they need to put their top 3 on their on their landing page, and that tells you immediately what should be stocked on the shelf.
So do you think, Matt, do you think companies like this, where they start with their product, you mentioned like who they are, why am I here? How did I find them? Like, I think I found this company because I was looking up oatmeal to go, right? So I got here, but what makes me choose this company over another? They have a link here that says our story. Do you see that on, can you scroll up? I'm sorry. I wish I was sharing the screen. Otherwise I would. Who we are. Oh, this is another.
That's Intermix
No,
beverage.
this isn't their page because I couldn't find one for Umka.
Okay.
Oh,
So I found their page, and you're right, Matt. It took me 2 or 3 links to find it, so that's a problem. But I wish they had a picture of like Oregon on it or something like that, because the whole reason I kept searching is because I wanted to know what Umpqua actually was,
oh yeah.
and it's part of Oregon, but like it's not apparent until you get to the 3rd or 4th paragraph of their story.
You heard their story, right? Why it's called Umpqua?
It's Umpqua Valley.
And it also means fully satisfied stomach,
Oh, wow.
according to the YouTube video on their landing page. That is also not evident in their packaging.
Yes.
Right.
Well, and so there's part of the problem for me is, well, and maybe it's not a problem because the first link I find is to purchase it from another store, which probably they are fine with because they want people to mass purchase. But from a story perspective, their site's way better than my initial impression because I didn't know I wasn't on their site. I just clicked, and that to me, that's a problem for them. Is I click the first link. That's, if you're a company, you should have your branding SEO correct. You're the first ones that come up. Interesting.
Do you think it'd be more important here? Click on their story. Look at our story. If you go to their hamburger menu and click on our story. Yeah, our story. There you go.
Well, that still doesn't tell me the meaning of the word.
It's in the video. It's in the YouTube video.
But that should be, that's a really cool fact.
That is cool.
Like all over their website.
To me, this is a traditional problem with recipes. When I Google a recipe, I want to go to it and find out how to do it. I don't care that it was your great grandma smothered it from Japan or Mexico, or it's a secret recipe with 3 blueberries and 2 shakes of salt or pepper. Like, I want to know what's in it, how to make it. To me, that's what they've done here, is that same, what I call a problem. They're all about their story and like how cool we are, and which is really good, which is what I was looking for earlier. It just depends on why you're going there. This is great for like social media. Like this, I think should be all over their social media, which none of that came up. I went on Instagram and TikTok and I can't find them anywhere. And if you're not out there for this kind of brand, and maybe they are, and I just spelled it wrong, which is another problem.
We just got a question in the chat. What's the topic?
Donnell Johns. Graham, you're in charge. I'm just here.
What's the topic? I'm late. All right. So the topic is like, how do we find problems, and then how do we get our organizations to deal with them is really, I think, where we went to with this. And Matt, you mentioned like, you start with, maybe you're brought on by some executive level or management, and then you like to go down and talk with the lowest level, the people who are actually doing the work, the people who are responsible for the goals, for reaching the actions. But now you've hit a whole new level of what questions are you answering for your customers? What are your users saying? Right?
Yeah, and that's kind of Donnell what we're talking about, is breaking down. We just used that site that you saw as an example because we didn't know he was going to pull that up. We're just trying to look at different ways of solving problems. And for me, all solutions and all opportunities come from the consumer or the employee, not the person at the top. And I actually just watched a thing about this. on TikTok. We were talking earlier about how you can actually learn from TikTok. And
Yeah.
Chloe and I are two of those people, and so is my wife, that learn a lot from TikTok. Like, I don't see a lot of dancing videos. I follow a guy that makes Excel videos, but I digress. I saw a video that was in Germany, 50% of the board of directors for every company, it's the law that they have to be employees.
I saw that. That was good.
Yes. And so the concept is so user and human focused that their solutions, and I can't remember the company, I think it was Mercedes, they came out with their solutions. What's that?
It was Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, Mercedes-Benz. Like, they have very few problems as an organization, because when they do, their employees, the ones that see them on the factory floor, are the ones that actually get to affect the change in the boardroom. And it is illegal for their, like in German law, whatever that's called, it's illegal for an employer to contact their employee in non-working hours.
Yeah.
Like, imagine that, right? Imagine that. Imagine, like, no, you can, like, and there was at Mercedes also, the Mercedes IT software system is set up so that if a manager tries to contact someone, the email won't send. It'll send the following Monday or Tuesday or whatever working day. And I bring that up because to me, that's where the true solutions and they're focusing on the people. And that's where so many organizations are failing today, whether it's you're selling to someone or you have a big organization like some of us are familiar with. They claim to be focusing on the people, but they're really not. At the end of the day, they really don't care. And that's where problems start.
That comes back to me. That comes back to like data, without, context doesn't create any type of information and then insights, right? You saw that, you shared it, actually. I think you shared it out on LinkedIn. It was that post about the Legos. It was like, here's a cluster of Legos. And here's a, right. Yeah. So like, you're way up here in your organization, and I have a problem of we're not moving enough units. And you said, like, go down here to this level to start to find out where, to start analyzing the problem. Up here, I'm looking at, we're not moving enough units as number of units sold, cost of goods sold, cost of marketing, cost of like number of hits on websites, things like this. So like a really, really high metrics, but you're saying like problems start way down here. If you're not going way down here first, you're probably not getting a clear picture.
Agreed. And I'm going to address the comment that's in the, or go ahead, Mike, I cut off.
That's right. Good.
Roy Naku threw a comment, and to me, the answer, so the comments about like what kind of assessment can you make without like getting all stuck up in all the whatever. He used lots of words. Love you, Roy. But the thread there for me, the heart there is, how do you start making assessments and how do you start finding those problems? Ask. Hands down. Just start talking. The amount of leadership in any level that doesn't talk to their employees, that's the problem. They're not actually, they don't know what their real problems are. You don't need assessments and surveys and all this command climate stuff which is a government word, or just like, hey, how's everyone doing? Fill out this 40 answer survey. No, just walk to their freaking desk and say, how are you? Tell me something that you can solve. But the trick, or tell me what one of your problems is that I can solve right now. But a caveat, the trick behind that is they have to believe that you're going to do something about it. They have to believe that you're going to help them.
So you're talking about you've got to be the Alfred to your Batman.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where this whole thing started, Chloe. Don't lie.
It is. It's
I just brought it full circle.
I think it's more like you have to show them that you're willing to stand in the trenches with them, or that you're willing to do the work to understand what the pain points are.
Well, and I think that goes back to anytime any of us have switched jobs, though, right? Is I spend the first 90 days observing more than doing anything. I don't like to make a lot of changes in the first 90 days because all it is observing the processes that currently exist. And so I think there's a part of that too when you talk like middle level management, because I always equate my job to the shift manager at a Wendy's, specifically at Wendy's, because Wendy's isn't good, but you'll go there if you have to. That's how I would describe my job. That first 90 days, 60 days, whatever that is, by not making changes, you can see projects go from the beginning to either failure or completion. And so to identify that in an organization does require that ability and restraint I think for all of us, I would say for the four of us, to not make an immediate change the second we see something that we know is wrong, but to see if it's a reoccurring trend, right? Yeah. Across not only the person, but the process, right? And I put those into two distinct bins because sometimes it's people oriented, sometimes it's people interacting with processes, and sometimes it is simply just processes. And to be able to isolate those individual lanes, you're then able to identify what the correct or appropriate action is. Because if it's a people versus process problem, it's the person's having conflict with the process, which leads me to dive into each separate lane, the person and the process. Which one of these don't work? And so when you're talking about customer interface or different ways to identify things or issues within an organization, other than what Matt said, which is, yes, absolutely going out and talking to people, but Matt's also the guy who walks across an ice rink and has no problem talking to strangers. I would never do that. One, because I'd look like Bambi on ice. Number two, I don't want to talk to strangers, no matter what Malcolm Gladwell says. But I am much more comfortable, right, in a very observation method of sitting back and waiting, and just asking questions as they occur, taking a mental note and moving on. So I think when you start talking about big, significant organizational changes, like you should explain to people how your brand of oatmeal fills you up, which would be great to know because oatmeal traditionally doesn't make me feel very full, which is why I don't eat it.
Sure.
Would be awesome. Batman?
Yeah, so I don't have control. I wish I did. Otherwise, I would throw up Roy. He also added that my words are worth it. and yes, there it is. All right. And Donnell Johns, I think it's a different combination of both. Do the people understand the goal and the problem that they want to solve? And has the leadership communicated the goal? Like, that's absolutely like, I hope Matt pops up back on here. There he is. Because like this whole communicating with the people, being the Alfred to your Batman, a leader, right? What was it? Like a leader isn't responsible for selling. Like, where do we start this with Temper Sealy, right? A leader isn't responsible for selling more mattresses. A leader is responsible for aligning a group of leaders underneath them to align a group of leaders underneath them to align a group of leaders underneath them to sell more mattresses, right? Or to like get after the thing. So as a leader, like this gets after this in a combination. It's a combination. Donnell said, do the people understand the goal and do the people want to solve that problem?
Well, I would also say, do they care?
Yes, that goes to the other side. Is depends on what you have on your team. Do you have just workers that just come in and go home and don't give two shakes of what their job is or care if their success? If it is, that's harder. That leader word that you keep using, Graham, has nothing to do with rank or authority. Leader is not a certain position in a company. People in certain positions in the company should be leaders, but you as an employee should also have, Chloe's making a mohawk, it looks like, a side hawk.
I'm Batman!
Now, Batman, they should be having the cojones to go to their leader that's above them and say, hey, I don't understand what we're doing this, instead of just going with it and just failing because they're frustrated.
So you're saying do you agree or disagree that, like, I mean, it's probably organizational dependent, right? But like, it could be really beneficial if your problem is outside the organization. Maybe you need to start outside of the organization, or if your problem is outside the organization, you need to do what you said at the beginning and challenge your assumptions and look inside.
Yeah, and I think it. Sorry, Matt.
Go.
Well, I was going to say the issue is it organizational alignment is correct, but what the step I think everyone should pause to consider is you have to look at if you're looking internally and you're looking at the inside of your organization, you have to look at the individuals and what they care about, right? So like salesmen who sell mattresses get a certain amount of money given back to them in performance of sales. But if they're not motivated by that and they're motivated at something like time value, how do you then get them to care about their time equal to the same amount as performance, right? And that's where people, I would argue, commonly misstep, because monetary, in 2022, monetary compensation is top 3. But I would argue above that, and there's a lesson learned from 2020, is time. If someone can accomplish the same amount of things they could in 8 hours in 4, why are we not only paying them for 4 at a higher compensation rate, right? Because you still keep that money-driven value, but they know they only have to commit 4 hours of their day and move on to something else. And by not factoring those in, you're then not looking at your organization internally, because I would argue that time, as you have all heard me preach 100 times, is the only resource we actually cannot obtain more of, no matter how much power or money is attained.
Not true. I found a time machine in a hot tub once. We are at a time box. Mike's putting in the chats, reminding us you're on mute. How are you supposed to be in charge when you're on mute?
Again,
You put me in charge.
I did
We're
not.
on the line here.
Yeah,
I've identified a problem. Graham's in charge.
Or this was Graham's idea. Yeah, and Graham is in charge. There's a lot of blaming going on here today. All right.
I just want to know I'm not. I'm good.
All right. So I want to wrap this up then. Matt, before I close out, like if you had one last thing that you wanted to drop on a leader in an organization at any level, and they've got problems, but they don't know where to start, where do you start?
Get a huge piece of paper, go walk out, put it in your organization's break room, write 99 problems on it, and tell them, put all your problems anonymously, don't be there when they do it, and start finding out what the real problems are, and then do something about it. Stop asking for surveys, stop asking for things that you're not going to read or do anyway. So actually a caveat, if you don't care what the problems are and you're a horrible leader, then don't do anything and just keep losing people. Keep status quo. People will keep quitting. The great resignation will keep happening, and just don't do anything. If you actually care, then start talking to your people. Find a way to do it.
That's awesome. So we talked about today, like where to find problems. We talked about, I want to drop this. Donnell Johns. Can you throw that up? Yeah, that one. Rewards are important. As long as it's in alignment with both people and the organizational signal goals, standards are important as well.
Oh, so I challenge that a little bit.
Go, Chloe. I'm going to challenge it too.
Yeah, so if everything's important, nothing's important, as once again you've all heard me say. You have to put it in relationship value, right? What is more important? What is most important? And you can have priorities, right? Everything is important as long as it has a linear list and priority, because I know you care more about this, than that. And that's okay. But you can't, when people start to chain words like that, everything then becomes important. I really care whether you get me that TPS report, and I really need you to make sure that you're in the company's uniform, and I need to make sure that you also mop up after you leave for the day. Oh, and don't forget, it's also super important, clean out the fridge. Of all those 4 things I just described to you, what do you now define in your brain is the most important? Nothing. None of it is important.
The fridge.
The fridge. And it's only if it's in my food. Yeah, but Matt, go for it. Full send.
So standards are important. Graham, you said what a leader should do. One of the biggest problems in organizations today is people are not firing people that are toxic to the organization. What in any cycle, frame, or sense, if you allow people that bring down the rest of the team, even if they're the best performer, hypothetically, let's say Mike sells the most mattresses out of anyone in the whole world, but he keys everybody's car, he spills their coffee, he's just a horrible human, which he's not. Mike's awesome. But it doesn't matter what someone's performing based on how their effect on the environment is. And that's one of the biggest reasons people are quitting. And that's not Matt saying this. That actually came from the lady you interviewed that does talent management. She talked about people not getting rid of people that are creating the bad environment.
I really thought you were going to say TikTok.
TikTok.
I do love a lot of TikTok.
Like this.
Oh, God.
TikTok. You just created yourself.
Now we have 0 viewers. Thank you.
Yeah, we 0. It did drop to 0. No. All right. So we talked about that stuff. We talked about like, you know, and I'm gonna say, if you're looking to engage your people, if you want to give them courage and to try something new, like point them in these directions that we've been talking about. If you want an expert on real, honestly, like you want to talk to the expert, you want to talk to the real expert about real shit that's going on inside your company, then go to the lowest level. Like Matt said, like you want to know what's going on. Don't go outside. The outside numbers are the outside numbers. What's going on inside that you can address directly now, positively influence. And that stuff will drive the outside stuff. You talked about like starting with the people, starting with your organization, following up and address your problems. If you don't care about your problems, keep not caring. You're going to keep losing money. You're going to keep losing people. If you do care about your problems, start inside the organization. And like you said, Mike's awesome.
I think his actual name's Alfred.
Alfred, is he Alfred? Mike does throw Alfred vibes. He is the greatest supporter.
Thanks, Donnell.
Your Donnell is the Alfred to our Batman.
He is. You know what? I would agree with that.
Who, Donnell or Mike?
We can't have 2 Alfreds.
Mike
there's
is
4.
the
There's 3
April
of us.
only one
to our Ninja Turtles.
I'll take Roy. Roy's my Alfred. Standards make sense if there's a universal definition.
No, it's funny. I've written down 4 stickies in the past 3 minutes based on things that you guys said that relate directly to what I need to address. So
I hope the other 0 viewers are also writing on stickies.
There's 9 people. There's 9 people on LinkedIn right now, Graham.
It's awesome.
So Roy's got a point though, right? So it's like that would be my other piece of advice. If you're looking for someone to go talk to, other than the person who's producing the most and the person on the ground, right, that's churning in and churning out, go find the laziest person who's worked at the company the longest. That person inherently knows everything that could be corrected to be more efficient because they've circumvented the situation, but has given up because they've tried and tried and tried, but the benefits package or the compensation that comes with their required job requirements is worth it. So the laziest person in an organization who's been working the longest, so really think about that.
Yeah.
Is the person I would go to. Because I can automate a majority of my work. Well, I'm required a physical presence for my job. Therefore, that's not equal to less work or time for me. But if you really think about that, the laziest person who's been at the company the longest probably knows every single problem in that company and a way to make it better. If there's one person I would pull into my office, it would be that person. The guy who's been working for that company for 20 years, is 5 years away from retirement, doesn't care, but if you give him or her 10 seconds to complain, they will tell you every problem in that organization from the grassroots level all the way to senior management, because they've seen 100 COOs come through, 100 CEOs, 500 vision statements, and like 600 different modifications to equipment.
Yeah.
Oh, if we just tweak this on this machine, it would work this way.
Cool.
That's the guy I would interview.
Matt, dude, thanks for hosting this live stream.
No, you're in charge.
You're a damn rock star. I can't thank you enough for what you've done for my company, what you've done for me personally. If anybody else wants to reach out to you, say they're not already following you on LinkedIn, where we are on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, man, how is it best that they can reach you? If they're watching because they're friends with Mike or Chloe or me.
At Mohawk Matt Denny.
I cut you off again and again.
At Mohawk Matt Denny everywhere, including Venmo. You can Venmo me, Cash App at Mohawk Matt Denny everywhere.
Pay the man.
All right. Well, I would like at Mohawk Denny. At Mohawk Matt Denny. Everywhere. All right. Maybe this episode isn't brought to you by Odd Man Rush and their 9.1% Nut Punch beer, which tastes like a peanut butter porter. It's delicious. Or maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe it might not be. Who knows?